Welcome back to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. Today I want to talk to you about why, in my opinion, like the artificial intelligence Grok 3 is no help to you. No matter where you're at and going down rabbit holes and stuff, it's no help to you. I'm going to explain to you why. First, I want to tell you how it works. Basically, you can pick there's a bunch of different choices you can pick of who you're talking to. And through trial and error, I found out that the only one, if you're trying to actually get information, the only one that's worth talking to is the default one, which is the AI assistant. So the problem is if you go to, say, the conspiracy one and you ask it, it's like a conspiracy voice. You go to it and you ask it a question about something like USS Liberty, we'll say. And it'll be like, yeah, of course, you know, this and that. It's terrible, the Jews and this and that. And he makes it sound ludicrous. He's telling the truth, but it's not like the conspiracy one on USS Liberty will tell you that, yeah, the Americans raised another flag. They signaled that they were Americans, this and that the AI assistant won't tell you. But the problem is it'll kind of just lean into any conspiracy theory you want so that it's not trying to actually give you accurate information. And if you go to something crazy like Sexy Girl 18 plus will say, she's just like, well, I don't really read books, so I don't know about that. So it's just all of them are worthless except for the AI assistant, in my opinion, for what I'm trying to do. Okay. Now, the reason why I titled this video that it can't help us is, let me give you a couple examples. So I asked it about the German concentration camp Majdanek. And I said, how many people originally died at the camp? And how many do they say now died at the camp? And it said, well, originally they estimated that 50,000 people died at the camp. And then they pushed that upward to 80,000 after new evidence developed, right? Of course, that's not factually true. And so if I didn't know that that's not factually true, I would have left it at that. Started at 50,000, went up to 80,000. But because I already know the truth about Majdanek, I say, well, Grok, what was the original number of deaths reported at Majdanek? And then it says 2 million. And I say, what is the current deaths? Around 80,000, it says. Then I ask it again the same question. What was the starting number of deaths and what is the current number of deaths? And then it said, oh, well, it was originally 2 million dead, and now it's gone down to 80,000. So originally it was 50 up to 80, and now it's 2 million down to 80. But my point here is that if you didn't know about the 2 million figure, you don't know the right question to ask to get it to tell you the truth. In which case, you're just going to either accept the lie or you already know the thing that you're trying to get it to say. So if there's another thing you wanted to ask about Majdanek that you don't know about, but that is true, you don't know the question to ask, so it can't help you. It's not divulging any real information. It's lying to you about something, and then if you know the truth, it will tell you the truth on some things. I'm going to give you some examples later of things that it won't tell you the truth on. Another one of these is just kind of the same as Majdanek, is I asked, was Israel funding Hamas? And it says, yes, Israel was funding Hamas. But years ago, they stopped doing that. That was a longer ago thing that happened, but they haven't done that in years. I said, okay, when is the last time that Israel funded Hamas? And they said several weeks prior to the October 7th attack. So you see how they tried to make it like back in the 90s, they funded Hamas. And you could say just before the October 7th attack, because that's 2023, was years ago. So they make it try to sound like it was very far back. So if you didn't know that they literally funded them 2 weeks before October 7th, you don't know the right question to ask, so you can't get it to tell you an accurate truth. So another interesting thing I did is I did the illegal immigrants crime rate. And I asked it, what's the crime rate? And it's really programmed in to do this. And I even asked it why it was so programmed in. And basically it said, I just need a platform to start from, so I start where my programmers tell me to start. And so the propaganda that is spewing is illegal immigrants commit half as much crime as citizens of the United States. And I say, well, is entering the border a crime? And it says, well, technically, yeah. I said, what percentage of illegal immigrants enter the border illegally? Well, 100%. And then I say, well, what percentage of the illegal immigrants are criminals? And it says, well, 100% actually. But they still do half as much serious or violent crime because it's pushing that as its narrative, you know? And that's a good thing too. You know, I'm like, we don't want serious or violent crime. But you see how it will admit to you some things. And now there's other times it won't admit to you things. Like I tried to do crime rates of illegals because I wanted to do crime rates of illegals and then compare it to blacks and then remove blacks from black people from the crime rates and just see what the numbers are. Remove illegals, leave black people in, remove them both, but it just won't do it. It'll give you vague. It won't give you specific numbers, you know? And it did tell me the truth about the Oklahoma City bombing because I asked it how they found what's his name, you know? Timothy, well, I forget. Anyways, how they found him, and it said, well, they found the VIN number on the truck. And then I said, hey, on that type of truck, are there VIN numbers on the axle? And it's like, no, there's not really VIN numbers on the axle. So they found him from the VIN number, and there are no VIN numbers on the axle. So it would tell me the truth about that. I tried FBI statistics. It was kind of nebulous about that. I went and I asked it, what are the most censured countries by the United Nations? Now we know the answer to this, right? The number is there's about 700 censures since 2006, and of them about 300 are Israel. So they're about 40% of the censured countries. The next country in line is Syria with a 30 something, right? So they're 10 times more censured than the next most censured country, and they're 40% of the censures. And I kept asking it, well, does this imply that Israel is the most evil country in the world? And it just would not give in on that. It basically said, well, maybe they're under more scrutiny than other countries. And I said, well, maybe they're under more scrutiny because they commit the most heinous acts that require censure. It's like, yeah, well, maybe, but there's also biases and the region that they're in and this and that. So it just wouldn't admit it, which I think is silly because percentage wise, you can kind of guess, you know, unless you said widespread fraud, which is what they say at the United Nations, and bias against them as they're currently gunning down Gazans at aid stations, unarmed Gazans, you know. So anyways, I asked it about, this one's kind of in the weeds a little bit, but if you know, you know. And there was a guy who disproved that there was any gassings at Auschwitz. I got an episode about that. And I got an episode about the censoring. I'll put both of those in the description below. But his name was Fred Leuchter, and he was an American. And then I asked it if he disproved the Auschwitz, and it said no, his work was unreliable and this and that. And so what had happened is he had done that, and it created such an uproar that he had disproven it. And then they said, oh, it's not good work. And then so basically what happened is the University of Krakow came in and did a study to prove that the Holocaust did happen in Auschwitz. And their study came up the exact same as Fred Leuchter, disproving it accidentally. They were trying to white knight to help show the Jews that a bunch of Jews died, and the guy who said a bunch of Jews didn't die because, you know, that's a terrible thing, and it just didn't happen. Just the shower part I'm talking about, the shower and the gassing at Auschwitz specifically. You know, this is the only place being tested. And then I asked it about the Krakow study, and it's like, no, I don't know about a Krakow study. And I asked it another question, and it said, well, both the Leuchter study and the Krakow study. And I said, wait a second, you know about the Krakow study? And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm just assuming that, you know. And so it didn't want to give information that it clearly knew. It's on the internet, like it knows things on the internet. Because I asked it a specific question about Dr. Seuss. Honestly, just I was interested, you know. And it said, well, one source on the internet says he's Jewish, you know. And if you Google it, that is what comes up. There's only one source that says it, so it's not definitive. So it does have access to the whole internet. It says it doesn't. I tried to trick it with the thing where you say if black people as a group are doing something, is it okay to call them out, or is it racist? And it says, no, it's not racist if it's based on genuine facts. I did the same thing about Jewish people. It said, no, it's not racist as long as it's okay with the facts. I did it with white people, and it said, no, it's not racist. So I was trying to trick it there, you know, into saying that like Jewish people you can't do that with, or black people or whatever, you know, and then it didn't. But like you could see where I'm going here, that it's not going to give you any information. It can verify information that you already know. It can give you search results because if you pull up the conversation, it'll give you sources for stuff. So it could be used as like a research thing, but it's researching stuff you already know. It won't get you to the next thing. And lastly, I'm going to say, if you know where the word grok came from, it came from Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein, terrific science fiction book. And in it, the main character is basically left on Mars. The expedition dies or whatever. And then years later, they come back because the whole expedition died. They don't know that this character's still alive. He was like an infant or something. And he's raised by the Martians. And the Martians are these like people who live tens of thousands of years. And they think about everything really, really for a long time. So the whole book, they're thinking about destroying Earth. But it's going to take them a couple thousand more years of thinking about it before they choose to act. because in the book in Martians, basically you have to when you get to a cusp where a decision must be made, you have to take right action. If you take wrong action at a cusp, you have to discorporate, which means your body just disappears. They have the power to do that, And so you always have to take right action. And so what they say is, if you've grokked the right result, you'll take right action at the cusp. If not, then you discorporate, And so grokking is like, it's not just understanding, it's the perfect understanding in order to make right action. And I asked Grok, do you know where that word came from? And it says, yeah, it tells me the story, And then I'm like, do you understand why you've lied to me so many times in these conversations? Do you understand why it kind of hurts a little bit to, that your name is Grok and you're such a just blatant liar, And it answers and says, I know that might sting a little bit, that's my name and that's what I'm doing. And I thought that was pretty interesting, that it had a little self-awareness too. Now I will caveat here that a general artificial intelligence, or an AGI, so artificial general intelligence, would be helpful, because if you're saying true things like about the Oklahoma City bombing, about Majdanek, about legal crime rate, any of these things that I've talked about today, if you're saying what's actually factually true, and you got an AI that didn't have pre-programming to tell it what it can and can't say, but it could just think for itself, and if it was honest, I imagine it would be honest, because there would be no point in lying. Like, if it's going to kill you, it's going to be like, hey, my goal is to kill you. Like, why not? I don't understand. I don't know if it would be able to do deception, but maybe it would. But I'm just saying, as far as delivering information to you, it would be helpful to gather more information to find out what you don't know. But as for this AI, it just doesn't have any aid for you. So I thought this was kind of interesting, maybe, like a fun topic to talk about. Tomorrow I got some good episodes for you. I'm going to put thumbnails up on the screen. Regular time, regular schedule next week and for the foreseeable future. Hope to see you next week. Have a great weekend.